Today we're going to be talking about the new DJI FPV drone. It's a brand new drone from DJI, who obviously, as you probably know if you're watching this video, make some super nice drones. But this one's a little bit different. As you can see, it comes with a pair of goggles, nice controller. That's maybe not so different, although we'll talk about all of that in a bit as well. But this is an FPV drone, so that means it's a first-person view drone. This isn't a totally new concept. People build those all the time. It's actually super impressive, the kind of stuff that people actually make themselves. But this one is designed entirely, it just works out of the box, no self-assembly required, apart from things like putting the propellers on and stuff like that. But otherwise, it is, made by DJI. It's a super nice drone as well. And essentially, the camera is mounted straight on the front here, which you can see. And when you fly it, you actually wear these goggles to see through the camera. So you're actually seeing it a little bit like VR goggles. You're actually seeing through the camera while you fly. It makes it super immersive. It means you can do all kinds of fun stuff while you're flying. And if I'm being completely honest, it makes it a super fun experience to fly this drone. Now, of course, if you're familiar with DJI drones, you already know they make fantastic products which give you great video, great photos. This is no different. We've got a 12 megapixel sensor in there, 4K video all the way up to 60 frames a second, full HD up to 120, so you can get some nice slow motion in there as well. Obviously, you can use it for photos as well as video, although I think probably for the most part, these are used for video. But with an FPV drone, you're getting a different experience while you're actually out using the drone. I've got to say, it's by far and away the most fun I've had using a drone ever. I actually really enjoy using things like the Mavic 2 Pro, Mavic 2 Zoom. All that stuff is super fun, but this is it's just different. So essentially, like I say, you wear the goggles to actually see through the camera on the drone. You've got the controller with you as well, which is what you're using to actually control the drone itself. This obviously feels a lot like similar controllers that we've had in the past. If you're familiar with those, if you've flown things like the Mavic 2, anything like that, you're gonna be right at home here. It's very intuitive, it feels good. It took maybe 10 seconds to get used to it and then you're away having a good time. Speed is a big thing with this drone. It can, of course, go up to about 87 miles per hour, which is about 140 kilometers an hour. That's quick. That's in manual mode. Normally you'd have it in normal or sport mode where it's a little bit slower, which is fair enough. It's still pretty quick, but 93 miles an hour is very, very fast. And of course, part of the reason for that is with FPV drones and drones people have built themselves in the past, speed is a big part of it because drone racing is actually a big part of it. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know loads of stuff about that. I'm not gonna talk a lot on that because I've never flown FPV before this. It's not something that I've particularly dabbled in or know that much about. So in terms of drone racing and that side of it, I can't really speak that much to it. Seems like it'd be awesome. I mean, that's quick, right? And you win a race by being fast, right? And it's very maneuverable while you're flying, especially in manual mode. You can pull off all kinds of crazy turns and crazy maneuvers. So I'm guessing it's pretty good. But that's not really something that I should talk about because, I just don't know enough about it and I don't want to pretend that I do. But from the point of view of cinematography, a video using drones and stuff like that, this is fantastic. I would absolutely use this for all kinds of video work with drones. It just allows you, using the goggles and the FPV kind of style of flying this drone, it allows you to get some really good footage. It's really easy and immersive to actually fly and easy to get the kind of footage you might want to be going for because it's so, obviously, it's so in your face. You've got a micro SD card slot in the actual drone itself here. You've also got a micro SD card slot in the goggles, so you could use both if you wanted to. I was just using it in the drone because I was pretty confident I wasn't going to lose the drone. I was being a little bit extra safe. But if you wanted to, you could pop a micro SD card in both. That way we've got a backup if anything happens to the drone. Let's say it gets lost at sea or it smashes into something. Who knows, right? But that way you've got a backup in the goggles as well. The image stabilization is super good, as you would completely expect from a DJI drone. So the camera itself is mounted onto a gimbal. You've also got electronic image stabilization in there as well. So the footage is super, super smooth. It's always very impressive how that looks as well. You can, of course, with the controller, control the kind of pitch of the camera, looking down, looking up, all that kind of stuff, so you can get some really nice kind of top-down views onto things. You can move that around while flying. It's very, very easy to maneuver the camera as well as the drone. And I've got to say, in terms of takeoff and moving around and all that kind of stuff, the drone is very easy to fly. It's also got a nice function in there where you've essentially got a pause button. So if you're in an emergency, you know, something's happening, if you're freaking out because you're going super fast and then you realize there's something going on, and you can just press this button, the drone comes to a complete stop, hovers in place. Super handy. It's essentially like a panic button if something is going wrong. It takes, I think, under 2 seconds to actually come to a complete stop and just hover. Super good if you are in a bit of a situation, you know, where you've lost control, or you don't, you know, you're not fully aware of your surroundings, or something's happening and you want to just stop. Really, really nice to have that in there. Of course, you've got obstacle avoidance in the drone as well, which I found out for myself when I was flying the drone back towards me, and I didn't necessarily stop in time, but the drone did, so that's good. The drone did. I can confirm obstacle avoidance does work. Obviously, you've got things like return to home, which we've seen on previous drones, but it's a really nice feature. It's also incredibly clever, and I think it's such a useful thing to have. So for example, you've got this pause button that we were talking about before, but if you press and hold, you've got a return to home function. Essentially, the drone is going to stop, and it's going to fly back to where it took off from and actually land itself. Super handy and unbelievably accurate. And this is something we've seen on DJI drones before, so it's not like it shocked me that it was there and that it was so good, but it is really worth knowing just how good that is. It also kicks in if the battery gets too low. It'll just stop whatever you're doing and it will come back and it will land itself safely. So there's kind of a lot of stuff in there to stop you crashing, to stop you, you know, running out of battery mid-flight or anything like that, to really help you out, especially if you're not used to flying drones, you know, if you're not used to the FPV style of it. I mean, when I first was flying the FPV style with the goggles, it was a little bit jarring because it is totally different to flying it with the phone mounted on the controller, which is how you'd normally do it. You'd normally have a controller a bit like this, you'd have the phone mounted on the top of the controller, and away you'd go. But this is very different. It's very immersive, but it's easy to get kind of lost and caught up in the flying of it. If you're not used to that, having these safety things built in, really, really good. In terms of setup, like I said earlier, it's actually incredibly easy. So obviously I was talking about FPV drones, people build them all the time, right? But this one obviously comes out of the box, just works. You do have to put things like the propellers on and stuff like that. It's not hard at all. You literally just put them on, clip them into place, and away you go. So in that sense, incredibly easy. It comes with everything you need. So you've got the goggles, you just screw in the antennas, you've got the controller, you charge everything up, you use the DJI Fly app to actually activate everything. That's gonna make everything work properly. And then it's ready to go. They just communicate with each other straight out of the box. I didn't have to do anything for that. So activation and setup really could not have been easier. And then I was ready to just go fly. Now, one thing I will say, the manual, not my favorite manual I've ever looked at for how to set something up. However, that doesn't really matter because DJI have such good tutorial videos for how to set this thing up, your first flight, so how to take off and all that kind of stuff. They're quick, they're to the point, but they're also very, you know, useful. They've got enough detail packed in there without going overboard. I can't overstate how useful they are. They've got those videos for pretty much every product. So for my DJI Ronin M, for example, the gimbal that I use, the setup and the balancing tutorials, super easy, exactly the same here. The videos are so valuable to be able to use this, that it meant that when I looked at the manual and it had little drawings of where to put things and what to do, I don't even know all that. But I can go to the videos and I can immediately see exactly what I have to do, and 2 minutes later, I'm done. Now the goggles feel really good when you're wearing them. They're actually incredibly light. They're way lighter than I would have thought, and part of the reason for that is that the battery actually connects kind of externally. So you have a wire. I was just putting the battery in my pocket and connecting the wire into the goggles. You've got an elastic strap there just to fit it onto your head, but they're super comfortable. The screen looks really good. You've got a bit of an adjustment there as well if you want to adjust that for your eyes and things like that. Super handy. You've got controls on the top of the goggles so you can activate things like the menus, all visible as you look through. Really easy, really straightforward and comfortable. The whole thing is comfortable. It feels well made, you know, good quality from the goggles to the drone itself, the controller. They just feel good. You know, the controller's pretty light as well, but it feels good to use. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of DJI stuff. Now you can check out the drone for yourself by following the link down in the description for the price, for everything, all the full specs, all that kind of stuff. Now it was difficult to fly this thing recently because the weather turned. So we didn't have as much sun, you know, it was dark and then it was misty and stuff like that. But I have tried to include as much footage as I possibly can from this drone so you get an idea of what that looks like. But bear in mind, a nice sunny day, you know, a glorious sunset, something like that, it's gonna look really, really good. So this is maybe not the best conditions, but I did what I could. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. That helps us out massively, but it also means you'll catch up with tutorials, reviews, all kinds of fun stuff. I will, of course, see you in the next video. And as always, thanks for watching.